just some random thoughts about the Israel-FOLAU saga. When the Rugby Association says that they're an inclusive organisation, they include everybody except Christians. So Rugby Australia includes everybody except those that they don't include. Very inclusive, that. And after all, its head looks like you just stepped out of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. So this head of Rugby Australia talks about the values of this organisation, as in that all of its members actively support the promotion of homosexuality, and none of its members are Christians, or in any way accept Christians in their ranks. And she has come to this conclusion. How? Has she done some research, polling? Has she polled the opinions of its members? And she is clearly talking off the top of her head, and she really doesn't have the first idea what the members of her organisation think or believe. She's just trotting out what she thinks she's expected to say as a political progressive. And it just reminded me of the way in which political slogans find their way into public discourse that are supposed to have kind of self-evident meaning, that these are statements that are self-evidently true. So let's talk about inclusive and diversity and all this. For example, I could cite Thomas Jefferson's famous line from the Declaration of Independence that all men were created equal. This was a man who owned slaves until the day he died. He clearly meant, in the context of the Declaration of Independence, that it was a case of all civilized white men are equal. The founding fathers owned slaves, that they did not in any way consider black people, rightly or wrongly, to be, sort of the equal of white people. And this expression has just come into the language. It has a poetic ring, and it's a wonderful sweeping statement. Of course, not many people have actually read the Declaration of Independence, but if you do, you might notice that Thomas Jefferson makes comments about Native Americans that would just about get him a jail term in 2019. I always also remember the quote from Edmund Burke that all that is needed for evil to prosper is that good men do nothing. And I immediately think of good communists, good Nazis, good practitioners of the Spanish Inquisition, all of whom did whatever they did because they thought they were doing some good. So that all that is needed for evil to prevail is that those people do nothing. And of course, the classic bit of rhetoric is the separation of church and state, which was intended by the founding fathers in the United States to prevent the Catholic Church from taking over the country. They were not excluding religion from the public square. Congress has always opened its sessions with a prayer, and people swear on the Bible in a court of law. So they were not on about excluding religion from public life, only that a particular sect of Christianity should not take over the reins of the country. So in the case of Israel-FOLAU and the Rugby Association, what they are saying is it's just an interesting exercise in how people can play around with words, because they are an all-inclusive organisation. They include everybody except for the people they don't include, which in this case is Christians, and which sounds pretty stupid. which it is. This is something that I took on board some time ago about the sacrosanctness of the separation of church and state. And I was thinking about this, and I realised how all-encompassing it is. It's a very convenient statement for secular, atheistic, leftist types to exclude Christians, who I might say, whenever they get into an argument about the Bible, they're always going to lose when they try to turn the Bible their own way. But that's another issue. But when they talk about the separation of church and state, I always think about, well, what about the separation of state and ideology? Because, as I've been hammering in recent videos, the left secularist atheists have a quasi-religion of left progressivism. I was watching something the other night where get-up supporters are chanting slogans all in unison. The message was that this organisation is virtually a religious cult. You know, sort of people with glassy-eyed devotees, you know, chanting slogans mindlessly. And I really do not see why, if you're excluding religion from the public square, why don't you exclude political ideology? An all-embracing belief system that is virtually a religion in its own right. And this is obviously the case with this rugby organisation and its ringing statements about inclusivity and diversity, which are just political sloganeering. Why is their all-encompassing totalistic ideology not to be excluded from the public square also?